You have grief in your heart, but what would you rather? Focus on the autism epidemic, what caused it, the people who are saying they're going to reveal it, stop the epidemic, people high up in politics, the same system that probably caused it. Or would you rather save your child? Because my child was injured and I spent a lot of time in anger, indignation, frustration, hate, trying to warn people about this. And I would rather have spent those years saving my child. And I want to tell you why you have to make a choice. Either you save your child so that your child gets to more independence as quickly as possible, or you focus on this narrative. My child no longer has symptoms like stimming, screaming, eloping, sleepless nights, aggression, sensory issues, lack of speech, echolalia, and now living a neurotypical life without the symptoms that gave him the diagnosis. I had to stop focusing on the things that most people are focusing on right now when it comes to the epidemic to get there. And I want you to have the choice between more independence and less symptoms for your child, or being an advocate and someone who is focusing on the epidemic. The first reason why you have to choose between focusing on the autism epidemic or focusing on your child. Symptoms are never caused by one thing. These root causes are different from mom to mom. And research takes between 10 to 20 years to become mainstream, which means if you want to focus on research, it's not going to benefit your child's future, but it is probably going to benefit future generations. Because the whole idea when it comes to research is to do a lot of studies and trial and error and double-blind placebo, and then it takes 10 to 20 years for it to be implemented into clinical practice. If you have 20 years or 10 years and extra time you want to spend on that rather than turning your child's symptoms around here and now, be my guest. I wasted around 8 years going down the mainstream and then the holistic and the alternative and the spiritual healing route, including the crunchy mom, indignation, blame the government, blame the mainstream medical field. Not that they are not to blame, but it was a distraction that took time away that I could have spent on my child's turnaround process. That's the first choice you need to make. Do I want to benefit future generations, or do I focus on my child's turnaround process right here and right now? Because you cannot do both. Unless you have loads of time on your hands, unless your child doesn't elope, doesn't lie sleepless at night because your child is screaming, it doesn't have sensory issues or picky eating so that you don't get the right nutrients on board. If your child is speaking and learning and developing, if you're feeling great and you have loads of energy and time on your hands, sure, you can combine that with helping other people. But if not, you have to choose. Why we cannot afford being too preoccupied in the stress and the trauma of what's going on in the epidemic and what's happened to our children. Science shows that a child's well-being is closely linked to the well-being of you. There was a study done in 2017, it's published in Yale University. They looked at children, orphans, and how being abandoned, the absence of a mother, affected methylation. Impaired methylation affects neurotransmitters, enzymes, hormones, detoxification, almost every aspect of health or disease in the human body. So when there's impaired methylation, there will be problems with mood development, detoxification, problems with behavior and learning, hormone regulation. Lack of maternal care causes physical and development problems for children and health problems long term. When we are stressed as mothers and detached from the body, do not walk in integrity, it is perceived as lack of presence for a child, as abandonment, because it is perceived as lack of presence when we are stressed out and when we are controlled by our trauma and PTSD and we are unhealed. Perceived abandonment and stress in a mother leads to less ability to be present and nurture, but also stress that is passed on to the child that affects methylation and overall health and development. What this professor Nottingham from Columbia University says about this: a parent is in many ways an extension of the child's biology as that child is developing. An adult who's routinely been there provides this enormous stress buffering effect on a child's brain at a time where the child hasn't developed that for themselves yet. So he describes you and your child as really one organism. That's so important. While you are out there trying to do your best for your child by advocating and being extremely upset about what's happening in the autism epidemic and how this affected your child, stress raises cortisol levels, affects your heart rate, breathing patterns, your nervous system in ways that impairs the gut health, detoxification, immune system in your child, because your child mimics your heart rate, your breathing patterns, and reads your nervous system. So you are affecting their biology and their mental health, because stress in a mother affects children's behavior and mental health. And cortisol levels have negative effects on almost every aspect of the human body. Being in stress and healing at the same time is not possible. So you have to choose between peace or advocacy, because peace leads to healing. This is exactly why I focus on neuroscience, brain plasticity, the way that we can improve your child's outcome and symptoms by working on your brain and your nervous system. This is why I focus on methylation, because methylation is what affects neurotransmitters, enzymes, and hormones, DNA expression. And methylation is closely linked to all functions in the body, leading to either health or disease, mental health or mental problems, including the autism symptoms, peace or dis-ease in every single area. I focus on epigenetics in my work when I take moms through a process where they become experts in this, and I don't want you to spend the same 18 years that it's taken me to get to this point. This is why I focus on epigenetics rather than genetics and what your child is born with or what your child is damaged by, because the expression of genes, which codes for or leads to either behavioral problems, stress, mental health problems, even cancer and addiction and hyperactivity, rigidity and speech issues, can be turned on and off by the state of your heart, the state of your health, the environment, the emotional environment in the family. We want to focus on what we can change rather than what we cannot change. These epigenetic switches are affected by your thoughts, and your thoughts lead to actions that either lead to peace or more stress and more disease. We cannot get distracted here. Epigenetically, we are changing our children through our lifestyle, our level of awareness here, and our walk with God, self, and others. And listen, the main point here, which is why the spiritual and biblical aspect came into this process for me when I left New Age, and I'm so grateful for that, because I believe that is what really weaves all this together, and it's the reason why so many moms have such great results when they go through the turnaround program. It's because the spiritual and biblical aspect to this journey proves the spiritual and biblical aspect to this journey, which is what many people have a lot of resistance towards. But it really proves the science. It proves that peace leads to healing. Peace is the opposite of stress, which we know affects methylation and behavior and autism symptoms and can cause healing to happen. And the opposite of peace is distractions. All the methylation issues trauma leading to PTSD and stress, leading to lack of nurture and lack of presence in your nervous system, which is needed for your child to develop. So the Bible and God's truth speak about peace versus lack of peace, lies versus distraction. And the biblical path, the spiritual path, is really a path of life. It is a wellspring of life, which is why I don't believe that you can go through the turnaround process without a path of life that is spiritual and biblical. Because the enemy likes to use your trauma to distract you, make you stressed out and feel bad, and focus on things that make matters worse through trauma, PTSD, and stress around what has happened and what is happening in the world right now. A heart at peace gives life to the body. We know that from the Bible. We know that all over the Bible it is said that you can only be healthy if all is well with your soul. This is why I focus on mothers and not on children and symptoms, because you have to heal yourself and you have to walk in integrity with God, self, and others. That's what we spend 80% of the time doing in my program, because your child's behavior, development, and health really is linked to the state of your heart and your walk in. You can only heal, understand, and change your child to the level that you have healed, understood, and changed yourself in your walk with God, self, and others. Proverbs 14:30. A heart at peace gives life to the body. Proverbs 17:22. A cheerful heart does good like a cure. I have been studying for 7 months with my Bible teacher, Marcy Julin, who uses the Bible in this context to talk about healing of children and healing of parents from a biblical perspective. You're really one organism. And it says in Proverbs 14:26, whoever fears the Lord has a secure fortress, and for their children it will be a refuge. So when children suffer, it is not because God is punishing the children or punishing the children for whatever the parents have done. But the state of the parents, or the state of you, either good or bad, determines the health and well-being of your child. That's something that is illustrated in the Bible as peace. Your walk with God, self, and others, that's a wellspring of life. Epigenetics explain how God is using those mechanisms in the body to correct what's happened in the past, to correct what was bad in your past, in your forefathers, and also in this autism epidemic. I want you to choose peace. I want to work with you to choose peace, show you how peace actually heals your child. And that's why we cannot afford to focus on children, symptoms, or all the lies and distractions of the enemy, which remove peace and replace it with stress that cause all these epigenetic, behavioral, and cognitive problems and challenges. The enemy would love for you to be bitter and angry, spend a lot of time focusing on what caused this instead of how is this problem in my life teaching me the purpose of my life, who I was, and who I am becoming. I'm going to mention the most common causes for autism symptoms that are individual from family to family, that can only be unscrambled by a mother in collaboration with God, and will never be uncovered or dealt with by any functional medicine practitioner, by any mainstream medicine expert, or by any other mom on Facebook, whether they have helped their children or not. You have to become an expert in understanding this and dealing with the symptoms, addressing these root causes. Your child's behavior, development, speech, ability to take what they see and hear and turn it into concepts that give them social skills, language, emotional control, decision-making, focus. The way that my child has developed from not being able to do anything to a functioning, amazing child that participates in society, goes to work, drives car, is independent as an adult. It is depending, when your child is growing up, depending on the state of your nervous system and the state of your heart, because your nervous system, brain, and your children's brain and your children's nervous systems are plastic. Meaning you can change behavior, health, development through the nervous system and through the brain. And you need to do that in yourself first, because if you are not in a good place in your nervous system, and if your brain is not in a good place for supporting your child with peace, consistency, and parenting, and nourishment, and nutrition, one of the things that develop your child's skill and cognitive ability, behavior and emotional control, social skills, all the things that you need to function in life, like my child is now. It's depending on the plasticity in the nervous system and in the brain. The nervous system and the brain communicates back and forth with all the organs in the body. And it is so plastic that it can be changed, affect the quality of your life, health, mental health, and abilities and focus. And it actually happens quite quickly in children. And if we want to focus our time and effort on why our children are struggling with these things, we can. But we can also choose to use the brain's plasticity and the nervous system's plasticity to actually change the outcome for them and to address the symptoms that they're dealing with as a consequence. Now, how do we do that? We do that by the opposite of what everyone is doing in the autism community. What's everyone doing in the autism community? They're focusing on behavioral therapy, getting rid of symptoms. They're focusing on trying to include children, on trying to make it more comfortable to be autistic in the society. Noise cancellating, headphones, chew toys, trying to make the discomfort of autism as bearable as possible. And that's the opposite of what actually changes the brain and the nervous system and your child's outcome. Why? Because neuroscience shows that frustration, discomfort is what's needed to tell the nervous system that something is wrong, to tell the brain that something is wrong, so that the brain can create new pathways, new maps to navigate the world through visual and auditory processing, and fire off epinephrine, fire off acetylcholine, and fire off dopamine to actually increase attention, increase focus, and increase dopamine so that we can make new changes in the brain and the nervous system, which impacts speech, social skills, development, behavior, health, emotional control, and the outcome in life. So we need frustration. Children need to practice to stretch what the brain is capable of. And that in itself changes the brain and the nervous system and their outcome. In other words, we are created so that frustration creates acetylcholine, epinephrine, and dopamine in order for us to actually create new maps, create new pathways, to create new skills, to hardwire new skills like social skills, emotional control, focus, auditory processing, visual processing, skill development, all the things that you need to move from extreme meltdowns, lack of speech, lack of sleep, all these sensory issues, to actually being able to function in society. What do we do in life as autism moms when we are obsessing about the epidemic and we're obsessing about indignation, we're in anger? We are actually moving away from spending time on the things that actually can change our children's life. We need to be able to sit with the frustration, our children's frustration, and help them move through frustration so that they can change their brain, they can change their skills, they can change their nervous system. In order to be able to do that, we need to be able to sit with our own frustration and learn new things, learn new skills, just like I had to when my son was injured, taken to hospital, and I lost him. I lost my friends, my job, my everything, because he was so ill that everyone literally told us to put him in an institution. I had to learn everything from scratch. And that changed my brain. And I sat with so much frustration that at some points I didn't even want to live anymore. But if you look at how God is using that frustration, that dark valley, how he used it in my life to bring me to my knees, to start over, to become humble, and his long-term goal and plan for me, which was I needed to meet him and surrender everything to him. I was slow to do that. He uses that frustration to create new pathways and new outcomes for you and your child. So who knows what meltdown, what breaking point, what dark valley he is choosing to put you through to get you to where he wants you, so that you change your life, your nervous system, your brain, your lifestyle, and you change your ways so that your outcome is different. The enemy, who is all about destruction and disease and distractions, would love for you to obsess about what causes autism on a global scale and think that you and a politician are going to stop this and focus on that, distracting you from the incredible design that God has installed in you and your child and the plan that God has through this dark valley. So that's the main distraction. And that is why you cannot afford to spend time on that. And you cannot delegate authority to any politician in the elite matrix to solve this issue, problem, challenge, or this job that God has given you. And that is what I take moms through, that process of recognizing what's actually distractions here. What are tools we can use to change our children's outcome? How can we tailor our approach to get our children to a better place by lived experience? Because guess what? You cannot sit with frustration. You cannot change your child's brain and nervous system if you are still unhealed when it comes to your trauma in childhood. If you are detached from your body because you don't want to feel pain from the past, you are running away from pain in the past. So you can't feel your body, you can't feel your heart, and you're distracting yourself with work, coffee, people, and even trying to fix your child and be busy out in the world trying to fix the world and the autism epidemic, rather than looking at the state of your heart and the state of your soul. There really are two ways. You're either healing or you are maintaining status quo and staying in the prison of disease and distractions. And so that's a key word. Distraction or direction. The enemy loves to steal your peace. The enemy loves distractions. The enemy loves for you to be occupied with people and anger, indignation, and problems that causes fear in your heart and stresses you out, and anger and bitterness about what people did to you and the way that the system and the matrix has been manipulating you. And yes, indeed they have. And God is using these events in your life, these moments in life where your prayers have not been met and where things and life didn't go the way that you wanted. He uses that to test your patience and your faith. He also uses it to move you, change, shape you, to discipline you, so that he can glorify himself in the way that he changes you by revealing his plans, his long-term plans. And we never know, we are never clever enough to know what his long-term goal is and his long-term plan is for you specifically. But if you start questioning him, become bitter, and you become angry, and you become frustrated, and feel you should be rewarded or healed quicker than he's actually blessing your life right now, you are disturbing the peace in your heart that he has given you in order to restore your life and your child and heal you and glorify himself. So God uses challenges, disease, breakdowns, dark valleys to shape you. Are you going to complain and grumble? Are you going to focus on people in the world and bitterness and anger and unforgiveness, all the things that disturbs the peace in your heart? Will negatively impact your child right now and will negatively impact your child's future long term, because it affects your immune system, your methylation, your DNA expression, parenting ability to nurture, because the more stress, the less nurture. That's proven over and over again. And your nervous system and your brain plasticity directly impacts your child's nervous system and your child's brain plasticity, either negatively or positively. So you cannot have both. This is why I started this podcast by saying you have to choose. You either walk in peace and understand that God has a plan for this event in your life to glorify himself and for peace and healing in your life long term, or focus on the world, idolize people in politics, or you delegate both the responsibility for why this happened and the authority over your life to people or politicians or other moms, instead of walking in integrity with God, self, and others, to set yourself and your child free from this prison. And when I learned that and started to walk truly in integrity with God, myself, and others, is when my son's development just skyrocketed. And I'll say my son is still developing. He is 25. He is absolutely amazing. We have been on this journey since he was 4 years old. I have seen hundreds and hundreds of moms throughout this journey. I know who is making it and who is not, who is stagnated in this process and don't see a lot of change. And that's the moms who are focusing on the things that create fear, stress, anxiety, and bitterness. And all of these distractions are actually distractions that we are using to escape from our hearts, to escape from our pain, to escape from the work that we need to do on a cellular level, on a heart level, and in our soul. But you cannot escape from God's plan. You can waste a lot of time on distractions, and that will just prolong the process for you. And that's why my invitation for you today is stop, refocus back on your walk in integrity with God, self, and others. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and would you do me a favor actually? Would you go to Spotify or Buzzsprout or iTunes or YouTube, wherever you're listening to this episode, and give me a review and give me some stars, because it really helps me. I read it and I treasure it, and it helps me help other moms not waste time on things that has no effect on the stimming, sleepless nights, eloping, lack of eye contact, lack of development. And I want as many moms as possible to get to less symptoms and more independence while they are dealing with their own stress, their own disordered eating, their own sleepless nights. And this feeling of being in prison in their own home, not being able to go shopping without fearing the next tantrum or eloping. I want moms to be able to look into the future and envision a child that can drive and go to work and have friends. Those are the miracles that I see God facilitate in mothers' lives. Those are the miracles that I see happening over and over again. If these moms learn how to include neuroscience, God's plan, trauma healing, walking in integrity with God, self, and others, learning how to look at a symptom, know exactly what's triggering that symptom and what to do about it by lived experience, because you can only heal, change, understand your child to the level that you have healed, changed, and understood yourself, and understood what God's plan is for you. This is all about who you are becoming, not about who you were and grieving who you were. Because you're not supposed to return to who you used to be. God is revealing his plan for you and who he wants you to be. If you want to work with me, if you want me to help you get there, if you want to walk in my footsteps, because I've been doing this for 18 years and I'm working with moms, I'm helping moms understand and implement this every single day. And I've been doing that for years now. Send me an email, contact@barefootautismwarriors.com, or go straight to barefootautismwarriors.com and look at the program that I'm taking moms through. Connect with me on Instagram, send me a DM. It's really important for me to understand you, understand your child, talk to you about what's going on, what might be broken and missing in your case, to audit what's going on in your life, to figure out if I can help you, or maybe figure out a next step for you, or who to work with that would be a better fit for you. Let's have these conversations. Let's completely change the narrative and the outcome of autism. So let's change that epidemic together. See you soon.